You're watching Global Trade This Week with Pete Mento and Doug Draper.
Well, happy Tuesday and welcome to Global Trade This Week. I am one of your hosts, Doug Draper, and with me on the East Coast is my good friend Pete Mento. Pete, what's shaking?
Well, it's another crazy week, buddy. This is I don't know how many weeks in a row I've barely made it on time. So,
yeah. Well,
go Sox.
You got to. Hey, you got to do what you got to do. So it's good. Here's the cool thing: Cap Logistics, super engaging, and they work around our crazy schedules. Seems like the last couple of Mondays I've been on the road and everything else. So not only is Cap great at producing shows, you got to check them out at caplogistics.com for all the other supply chain and logistics needs they do. So
agreed.
Yeah. Well, we've been pretty good at just jumping in and hounding it. So let's do that again this week. Pete, what's your first topic?
The greatest story ever told, my friend. Whenever I seem to get onto the Googles and I decide that I want to listen to the whining and lamentations of the media with regards to the supply chain morass that we're in, some sock puppet likes to bring up that a reason that we're having so many problems with congestion right now is the trade war. Oh, the trade war is one of the reasons that we're having a problem with all this congestion. And to them, I say, kick rocks. You have no idea what you're talking about. The trade war has very little to do with our current problems. You like my jujitsu cut right here?
Yeah, I do. That means you're working hard.
I took some fingernails to the face rolling on the mat the other day. Trade war has nothing to do with it, but we have an instance that I think really illustrates, buddy, why the trade war was so important. Semiconductor manufacturer, British semiconductor manufacturer, ARM, was operating under a joint venture in China. And when they decided to set up their Chinese joint venture, they had to hire a Chinese CEO, buddy, right? Like you do. Yeah. And 51% Chinese ownership. Well, they were unhappy with the way that the CEO was operating. So the board had a vote and they said, sir, we are no longer happy with the way that you're doing your job. You're out. This happens every day around the world. Well, this CEO said, no, I don't think so. Because I have the chop. And the chop, for those of you who don't know what that is, it is the official company stamp. It is the signature, if you will, of the financial entity that is the company. And he said, and as long as I have it, I'm still in charge. You can do all the voting you want. Baby, I'm the man. And he said, not only that, I'm the one who actually hired all the security around here. So security, anybody comes around here to throw me out, throw them out. They're not coming for me. He effectively took over the physical plant of the company and then said, I'm still in charge. I'm signing contracts and I'm going to sue myself for trying to fire me. He hired representation to defend his own company from suing himself and won in Chinese courts and then rebranded the company with a new Chinese name and sold 20 billion of his own microchips and processors. And he did this all with stolen IP from ARM. So why are we in a trade war? It's because we continue to have to be in joint ventures with Chinese technology firms who could do exactly this. Mm-hmm. There is no rule of law that exists in China that could have stopped this. And right now, what are you going to do about it? Why on earth would you trust anyone that you're operating with to allow this to happen? We are in a trade war with China to get some sort of regulatory correction to stop this from ever happening. You just saw one individual literally through sheer force of will take over a multi-billion-dollar microprocessor operation by himself and get away with it. And there's nothing anyone can do about it. Yeah. Doug, if I didn't read this from multiple credible news reports, I would have thought that it was a fantasy. Mm-hmm. Keep those tariffs in place. And I hope that when all this is over with, the British sue this guy into oblivion.
Yeah, that's crazy. you got to throw in a group of renegade ex-military guys that go in there and hunt him down, and then you have the perfect script for a drama thriller that we'll see at the movie theaters soon. It's crazy. When you shot that over to me, I was like, really? This is nuts. So
I couldn't believe it was real. A friend of mine in China actually sent me the story because I hadn't even really heard about it. And then I started reading the story and I'm thinking to myself, why isn't this all over the Journal of Commerce? Why isn't this an American shipper? Why isn't this on the front page of the Wall Street Journal? So I'm like, we're going to report the heck out of this because this is exactly why we're having so many problems renegotiating a trade agreement with China. Mm-hmm. This kind of stuff. I mean, one person, one very powerful, mind you, but one person just took over a semiconductor business by sheer force of will. Yeah. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. Stole all that IP, and he's essentially gotten away with it. Rebranded the company, all of it. It's nuts. We'll put a link up to the story with the video so everyone can read it in utter shock and disbelief. Sit down when you read the story because you're not going to believe it.
It's that concept can happen with shoes, apparel, a lot of different other commodities. But you know what? The one that people want right now and will pay for and is in the highest demand we've ever seen before is semi chips. And crazy. I always talk about a big baller move or gangster move. That's about as good as you're going to get.
Yeah. It's absolutely nuts, man. It's nuts.
Oh man.
All right, Doug. So hit me with your first topic.
Nice. Well, I'm going to kind of stick with the China theme, and there was a speech and some interviews recently with our trade representative, Catherine Tai, and she was going to make a super important announcement. And they're going to, they meaning the U.S. and Catherine, are going to begin the process to exempt certain commodities from the Trump era tariffs. So that's awesome. But what does that mean? When I read that headline, I'm like, okay, let's dissect this a little bit. There's no timeline that's been defined, and the one word used is begin, right? There's no definition of an end other than we're going to begin. So, Pete, that would be like me saying, I think I'm going to begin my journey to become a lawyer at Harvard Law School, right? Hey, it's just the beginning, but I never gave you an end date. So it's a great headline, but the fact that it's just beginning, they've committed to begin, means there's not a lot of teeth there. There's really no specifics on what the commodities are. There's been some conjecture on what that might be, but there is really no defining anything around that statement, And then I think the last piece I don't think what they did at the very end of that statement was, well, it all depends on China. So I'm like, what's the point of the press release other than distraction? To say, hey, look at this new shiny object over here and divert attention, because I get it. I think it's valuable commentary, but there was no meat in that. And I think Catherine is rock solid. I think she's tough and strong. I think she'll do a good job, but there wasn't a whole lot said there, but it's making some news. So I'm a little perplexed on the timing of that, the purpose, other than distraction and validation of our position with China. I don't know. I didn't really see the point of that.
Yeah. When I was a kid, my mom and dad would ask me why something didn't get done or why I brought home a bad grade or got in trouble with one of my teachers. I'd say, well, I tried. I tried. I didn't mean to do that. Yeah. And my mom and dad would say a lot of things to me that I wasn't smart enough to understand. But my favorite one now that they would say to me was, Pete, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Right. Yeah. And I think that's an excellent, excellent metaphor for where we're at. Right. We have all these great intentions. We intend to enter into these negotiations with good faith. We intend to roll back these duties. We intend to show up with some language to negotiate. We intend to do a lot of things with these these talks with China in a few weeks. And I bet China is intending to do a lot of things too. But what both parties are intending to do is to walk in there from a position of strength and get every single thing they can out of each other, because that's ultimately what a negotiation is. Mm-hmm. So do I really honestly believe that we're going to be dropping tariffs left and right? No. Do I think there's a possibility? Sure. There's a possibility. I mean, there's a chance I could shave my beard tonight. Ain't going to happen, but it's possible, you know. I still believe that there's a chance that the last, the list 3 of the 301 tariffs could go away just as a sign of good faith. But I mean, come on, Doug, you don't take away the one thing that's driving the Chinese nuts right now until we have something substantial signed, executed, and happening. And that isn't going to happen. It's not going to happen as long as we don't have some real leverage on the Chinese. So until we see them actually follow through with their promises, these tariffs are staying in place, buddy. You're 100% right.
Yeah, agreed. So halftime, I just got a quick little snippet. Last week we talked about the IOU parenting, and here's your nice little craft parenting, and it was related to, are you shopping early for Christmas? And the fact that swaps and online marketplaces in your local neighborhood are going to become more prevalent. So I challenged our audience, and I said, why don't you make a comment on, are you an IOU parent? Or the IOU parent is they wait till the last minute. They realize they can't get the stuff their kid wants. So they write him an IOU underneath the tree and give it to him. So, Pete, it was a split right down the middle, 50-50. So I don't know what to read into that other than half of us prepare and plan and half of us don't.
I hate presents, Doug. I am very frustrating to love in that way, and that I adore showering people with presents. I love giving birthday presents and Christmas presents, but I do not like getting presents. A reason for that is if I want something, I generally buy it. And if someone gives me something, it's just clutter. I'm a big believer in the concept of Swedish death cleaning. Are you familiar with this idea, Doug?
No, but I have a feeling you're going to tell me what it is.
Yeah, this is a real thing the Swedes believe in. And it's that once a year, you should go through all of your belongings. And if you don't use it regularly, or if you don't intend to leave it to someone when you die, you should get rid of it. So I'm a big believer in getting rid of clutter that way. And it's not something I did until my late 40s, but I find that now that I have less, I'm a great deal happier. So, with Christmas coming and with there probably being a scarcity of things, I think it would be a lovely idea for us to have more by wanting less, and maybe teach our children that a little bit earlier. Yeah. And I'm starting to sound a whole lot like a John Lennon sort of a moment here, but that's who I am, man. I've always been a real peacenik hippie, so that's just the way it is. What would Jesus buy people for Christmas? Probably nothing. So
yeah. Well, I'm
going to buy you a drone, though, Doug.
No,
I'm buying you a drone.
And
I'm buying you a drone, and Keenan is going to get you drone flying lessons from someone there in Colorado, and I can't wait to watch you get really good at flying it.
Bring it on. I think there may be a couple people looking to say, why don't you get rid of Troy? Like, what's his purpose?
Oh, we love Troy.
He's my Zen master, so Troy is staying. Yeah. He provides purpose in my life. All right, man. Let's flip out of this thing. What do you got for number 2?
Yeah, the second topic is one, we talk a lot about sustainability, you and I. We also talk a great deal about environmental policy, carbon footprint, that sort of a thing. Am I still coming through okay?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah.
Don't let my blank stare fool you. I can hear you.
And it's an important thing to a lot of people in the shipping world. It's an important thing to a lot of importers and exporters and carriers. And this week, one of the big lobbying groups for air carriers announced that it's, the intention that many of the large carriers would like to go to a net carbon footprint of 0 by 2050, and net being the really important word. So, you're talking about 29 years from now, 39 years. No. 29 years from now, sorry. Yes, I'm an economist who does high-end functioning math, that they would like to be at a net 0 number. And net being the really important word here. It's not just saying that all of their aircraft, it's saying as operating systems, and that's a pretty big number. But still, if they were to live up to that number and that commitment, there's a lot of companies who are really pressuring air carriers right now to give them a service. Give me an air freight service that I can use as part of my transportation carbon footprint sustainability model that I can use. And you talk about this a lot, where I can say to my shareholders, here's what I'm doing as part of my social responsibility spend, and be able to put that into my 10K. And I thought it was very interesting that the air carriers are really putting it out there. They're saying, we're giving ourselves a goal. We're going to push hard as a unit, as a goal. And I think if they act collectively, they probably have a better chance of reaching it. But that net number, where they're looking at it as a collective business, you can look at it in everything from stop using plastics inside of their aircraft, recycling stuff that they use inside their aircraft, recycling parts, trying to find smarter ways to recycle the plastic they use in the knives and forks that they feed people their dinners with. So I thought it was an interesting way to go at it, but it's a practical way from a business standpoint. But I think it's only a matter of time before we begin to see ocean carriers look at that the same way. But I'm not sure we're going to see that anytime soon. I don't think that they're under the same constraints that the air carriers are. But I thought it was just a fascinating thing for them to come out with so early in the game, Doug.
Yeah. Well, being Debbie Downer on this one, I guess, right, is that there was no goal 5 years out, right? I think that's a logo or a pitch line of Aero Electronics. So there's no 5 years out. This is 30 years out or 29 years out. So there's a lot of posturing and shifting that could happen in 29 years, things out of their control that we don't even know about right now. So I'm with you. I applaud the effort and I applaud the awareness. I'm just not sure, kind of like my first comment, not sure what kind of teeth it has. It's almost too far out into the future, But anyway, every little bit helps. The more we talk about it, the more beneficial it is. I get it. I'm a believer in what needs to happen. I like comments like this. 29 years out, it seems like a short period of time, but it's too far out, in my opinion, for people to really grasp and get excited about it.
Yeah. I try to look at this through my trifocals as I stare at my laptop screen, and I think 2050, I'm probably going to be super dead. And it's not going to be my problem anymore. Yeah. But the way technology will probably advance between here and then, and the way that a lot of really smart minds will probably go after this, giving yourself that much time to look at it, I think you're also giving yourself, hopefully, a whole lot of runway for really intelligent people to come up with some pretty smart ways to manage it.
Yeah. Bank on the technology of the future to validate your commitment. So, pretty crazy.
Bring us home, buddy. What's our last topic?
All right, this one caught my attention last week, and I kind of will just say that is ocean freight now going to the sky? And what I mean by that is that CMA just made some news about purchasing some cargo aircraft off of the secondary market, and then they placed an order with Boeing to purchase some more aircraft. Not a lot, 2, I think, is what their purchase was, and they have some assets that they own anyway. But the thing that caught my attention is what we've been talking about over and over again, is that this is a hot market, the supply chain's crazy, and if I'm killing it on the ocean, why don't I kill it in the air? And it's going to be controlled capacity for their clients. This is my opinion. Controlled capacity for their clients. It's not going to add anything to the open market. They're going to corner the ability to upsell the air freight. I'm sure you know, is that SEVA is a division underneath CMA. So I don't think this is related to SEVA at all. It's just the steamship line trying to get in there and say, hey, if you can't afford, a 30-day transit through the process, or 45-day transit, or 60-day transit, hey, we got some aircraft you could toss it on. So I think it's pretty cool. I think it's a great business play because they're going to take advantage of the high margin and profitability that's going on in the air freight right now. So I don't really have a problem or a comment, positive or negative. It was just interesting to me that steamship lines are now kind of getting into the air business.
I disagree.
Go,
with you, Mr. Draper.
Let's do this, man. Let's go. Bring it.
I think that CMA bought these aircraft and put them under the CMA banner so that they could lease them through SEVA down the road, and that there's a tax play as part of this. But also, if those assets are held by the ocean carrier, it holds them outside the antitrust window. I think that there is an opportunity for them to be able to hold that, under that business structure, that financial structure, for a little bit of silliness. But I believe it also allows them to be able to lease that wherever they see fit, but be able to lease it back to the SEVA company. And I think that there's probably some opportunities from a tax perspective, and the way their transfer pricing is going to work back and forth with the intercompany cost there. But I agree with you that they're doing this in order to capture market, and they're going to see if they can remain profitable on it with 2 aircraft. And before you know it, it could be 50. When the Amazons of the world and the Alibabas of the world and the Apples of the world are picking up every single scrap of capacity that they can find, why not? Why not have some aircraft in reserve? At first I thought, are they just buying this stuff so they can move parts around the world? But that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
I think what you're talking about makes sense, but I think that they put it under CMA in order to get underneath the shield of antitrust. And I think they also did it for tax purposes and tax shielding purposes, so that they could lease it back to the SEVA company. Yeah. And that whole thing where carriers owning forwarders being under carriers, that is going to be interesting to watch for the next 10 to 15 years. And I think it's going to create an environment of haves and have-nots, people that have their own capacity versus people that are picking up the crumbs. It's going to be a really difficult environment to work in.
Yeah. Well, that's why we're a good tag team, Pete, because my perspective was the 15 feet in front of us, and yours is the 50 feet ahead of us. And
I tend to trip on what's right in front of me, though, buddy. So
very true. And it's another, in saying that and understanding your perspective on the story, is it's another example of people, when you own the rails and go vertical, you have greater control of your directive and the plan. But I think you're spot on. And to be honest with you, I think your take on it is probably a little more strong than I am. So I'll give you a little pat on the back.
We could probably do a whole show on the rail, buddy. We might want to consider that sometime, 4 topics just on the rail, because it's getting nutty again.
Yeah.
Savannah's so backed up right now that I don't know when it's going to get fixed, and can't find drayage, can't find port space. They got ships anchored off of that. And I never thought I'd see the day when Savannah was this messed up. I mean, that was always one of those ports I thought was going to be an outlet, but the rail's got a lot to do with it. So we could just talk about rail for 4. Maybe we'll do that one of these days. We still have to dunk on these fools with everywhere that we were right. I don't know, like major cyber things blowing up yesterday on banks and social media and all the cell carriers. That was a pretty good one that happened.
Yeah. Keenan, last comment, then I'll let you take us home. But Keenan and I were talking before you jumped on about this phone hack, right? We were just small talking. He's like, yeah, last week we spent all this time redoing our phone systems because there was a security breach. And I said, that's exactly what our company was doing. We had some phone issues. And he said, yep, it was, the service provider of the service provider of the service provider got hacked. And then it just kind of skyrocketed up
spiraled
up the chain, and it impacted lots of businesses.
Yeah, man. Yeah, well, if you've been watching the show, you know that's one of our main concerns is networking and communications and how it all comes together, and our focus on cybersecurity over physical security. But that's why you watch. Yeah. And that's why Doug and I are bringing hot takes every week, why we love doing this. We couldn't do it, though, without Cap Logistics. We hope that you do take an opportunity. If you love the content that we bring and you love the show and you appreciate how well that Keenan does it for us, we do hope that you take time and check out Cap Logistics at caplogistics.com to understand how they might be able to help you in your business. And as always, Keenan, thank you for taking time between naps, graham crackers, and cartoons to produce our show and for filling in when I can't make it. And Doug, thank you always for being more prepared than I am and certainly more insightful. And we can't wait to see you all again next week for another edition of Global Trade This Week with your friends Doug Draper and Pete Mento, brought to you by Cap Logistics. Thanks, Doug. I'll see you again next week.
Pete, good to see you, buddy. Take care.
See you, buddy.